Hi everyone, I hope you're doing really well today. I'm going to show you my White House building activity today. So this is a paper craft that turns into one piece that builds a little paper model of the White House, and it works with scissor cutting, folding, and pasting skills. So the first thing that we're going to do is take whatever crayons you want the White House to actually be, and there are some little dots on the page, and the dotted lines are always the tracing lines in ARTB activities. So we're going to trace the dots, and given that the White House is typically kind of white, there's not a lot of coloring necessary on this, but I always invite anyone doing my activities to color the objects whatever they would like to see the objects colored. So maybe it becomes the pink house for someone. Maybe it becomes the neon green house. The first step is going ahead and tracing all of the dotted lines that you see on the page. And as you can tell, the way I'm tracing here, some of these lines will require only smaller strokes that are going to be more about the hand, and some are going to be longer strokes that are going to require a larger connection to the arm, right, and the full movement. And you want to encourage your kids, if they're the ones doing the tracing, to really think about how they're moving, so they're not always using the same tiny strokes. Even if they're doing a long line, that they challenge themselves to move their arm down the entire line while tracing it. And on these, again, doing different strokes. There's some little tops on the windows. And part of the fun of coloring these before you cut them out is that sometimes it means you might not completely know where that color is going to end up in the 3D form. So part of the spatial recognition of this is that at the end you see where color A was up here and suddenly on the form it's under here. It's an interesting way of visualizing the way that the surface area has moved about to make these forms. Okay, once I have my tracing done, I always check the back, see if there's any other tracing spots to do. This is a double-sided print. It's up for free on my downloads page for the COVID-19 relief is what I'm calling it, because we're all at home so much. I hope that everybody can get to building and have some fun with it. Once we're done coloring, I'm going to take my scissors and do my scissor cutting. And the scissor cutting instruction in ARTB is always the solid line. So if you see here, there's a solid black line, and there's always some place that it connects to the edge of the page. And so I'm going to find where there's an edge of the page connection and follow that solid black line. When I'm first doing these with kids that have never worked with these activities before, I will ask them, okay, where does the solid line start and where does whichever line they point to end? And that way they know where they're going and they're kind of on the lookout. Also, I'll point out that there are other kinds of lines on the page. So in this case, there are dashed lines, which are kind of like small solid lines in a row with spaces, right? And I will have them tell me, are those solid lines? And then they'll reply yes or no. And if they say yeah, then I'll say, oh, do they look different than the other solid lines on the page, the ones that never have any breaks on them? And they'll say, oh yeah. And I said, well, we call these dashed lines, and dashed lines are going to mean that we do something different, that we fold. So let's find only the lines that have no breaks in them, that continue going all the way until they end, and that it's kind of a definite end, right? So we're going to do that right now. We're following this solid line where it goes out to the edge of the page. We're going ahead and cutting on the solid line wherever it is. And once we've cut a solid line, the nice thing is it kind of disappears because we no longer see it as we've broken the page there, right? It's like magically disappearing instruction set. one of the things that I really have appreciated about coming up with this toolbox of lines is that it's also an ever-present instruction until you do it, and then it's gone. So as I'm cutting, I don't have to really wonder if I'm supposed to keep cutting. I can see where that line ends, so I can see where I'm supposed to keep cutting and where I'm supposed to stop. So coming around here, some of these cut lines are going to be more intricate and force the user to kind of reorient the paper or understand how they're holding the scissors, how they could hold the scissor a little bit differently. And that is all part of just learning to move around the material, to be able to really control both hands and the material, which is one of the goals of doing these activities. Okay, we got to the end there. There's another solid line that just goes right in here, so I'm going to make sure to cut it. Those are the little solid lines that sometimes people overlook as they're following kind of the main line that goes around the whole page. Okay, once I see no more solid lines, I am now going to start folding, and my folding is anywhere that there are dashed lines. Let's see if you guys can see the dashed lines there. What I always show people to do is take your hand and put your fingers right up on the dashed line, push the paper up, and then fold and crease, because anytime there is that dashed line to fold over, it's always folding over the dashed line, which means the dashed line is then hidden inside that crease, as opposed to the outside, right? If it was folding away, that dashed line would remain on the outside. Instead, we're folding it inside so that the dashed line is inside the crease. And once we fold it, the goal is really to just make a crease, and then we can release it so that we can find the other dashed lines, so that we can not have any casualties and accidentally folding a page that does, part of the page that doesn't have a dashed line. We just want to crease it. And you'll see in a minute how having that creased helps once we get to the last step, which is our gluing step. So we crease that, we see a dashed line there. This is kind of like a scavenger hunt for the dashed lines. You're looking for wherever there's a dashed line, we got to get it folded. Got to get it creased. There we go. Crease there, crease there, crease there. Just a crease and let go. If we were to glue and then crease after we pasted, we would find that it's really hard to get a nice clean crease, and our edges, our different edges on the form, would be very round. So that's why we're doing these creases beforehand, is to have those corners take shape. Okay, this, I think I'm getting to the end. Just like with the cutting lines, I'm going to want to make sure that I check both sides, and whoop, see, there's a dashed line I didn't see, and there's another one. A lot like a little scavenger hunt for finding those lines, which is great for just visual acuity, visual perception, so that they're really looking for something and they get to take an action when they find it. Okay, once we have everything folded, now is our final step where everything comes together. We're going to take a glue stick, and with that glue stick, we are going to glue together matching shapes. So anytime a shape matches, it's going to have a sister shape, if you will. We'll have the twin, right? So here is an oval, and then here's an oval that looks just like it. And we're going to glue them together so that they match up, which means also in orientation, right? I've rotated these matching shapes so that if this one's down here, when it glues face to face with that other one, it's going to lay right on top. And push. And now with this one, I have included a suggested order of the shapes to match up. And by no means do you have to follow this suggested order. It's just that it's a suggestion, because some people feel a little bit more overwhelmed when they see this many different shapes on a page, and it's a real hunt for some of the matches. So I've gone ahead and laid out something that can get you started so that you can understand that it's really just a very simple look for a shape that matches and go ahead and glue it together. By no means do you have to follow that order. This is a fun way of kind of finding out what's easier to do first and what's easier to do second and third and whatever else. So I'm going to go around here and get this one into place, and then come around and get this triangle. I found the other triangle. Another way, if you're just introducing this to kids to get them to understand the process of matching the shapes, so a lot of times I'll see a shape and I'll say, okay, can you point to where the matching shape is? So in this case, they might say, oh, there it is. Okay, let's put glue on one of those. And so then they'll come over to me and they'll say, okay, let's put glue on it. And I'll say, okay, now we have to put it right on top. And I'll come and go, okay, perfect. We get it right on top of there. Good. Okay, and then we'll go to the next thing. Okay, where is the other shape like this? And they'll say, it's right there. And we'll say, okay, well then we better get some glue on it. And so we'll come over and we'll get some glue on this. And I see two that match right here while I'm doing that. So I'm going to go ahead and get glue on those. And then I'm going to get glue on that. And as you can see, I didn't go ahead and try to follow my suggested order. So now I'm getting into a little spot where I'm going to go, okay, I really have to look for, does that match? Oh, there it is under here. And I'm going to get some glue onto that. See another match here. We'll get these guys glued together. Here's another part that I always find interesting. At first, it's a bit of a learning experience for kids to realize that they can move the page around, right? So that they can reach inside the form and they can spin it upside down so that they can see stuff. A lot of times they try to work from the same angle. So part of them getting to really do this independently is that they learn how to move it around, push on the glue by putting their fingers both on the outside and inside of the form so that they can really hold things together. And then I've got this guy over here. And I think we only have one more little shape that I didn't get the glue stick in on early. And then we'll have our small White House all put together. And there we go. All right, we have a little White House. So I know that a lot of you may be following the presidential press conferences, and your kids may be seeing the White House up in the corner in the news. Now they can make one, and you can talk about different places that our country uses for different purposes. I'm trying to put a lot of the civic structures up on the free downloads so that maybe those come in handy as your impromptu homeschooling for the next few weeks, it seems. So yeah, I hope you guys like it. There's our little White House model, and have a great day.